We have a couple of Xbox things to go over, so let's get into it. So we got some interesting information, some potential insight on how Microsoft makes deals. And this one has to do with the deal that Microsoft made with Square Enix for getting Guardians of the Galaxy onto Xbox Game Pass. Now, I would say this is just a rumor because it's an estimation. It's a guess from this guy here named David Gibson. Now, David Gibson in his Twitter profile says he is a senior analyst at MST Financial. Don't get that confused with MSFT. He's not from Microsoft. It's a different company. And he's talking here about Project Spartacus. That's what this Twitter thread is about. And if you scroll down, you're reading through the things that he has to say. He ends up talking about the potential deal that he thinks Microsoft made with Square Enix for Guardians of the Galaxy, saying, keep in mind that Microsoft paid about $5 to $10 million for Guardians of the Galaxy to be on Game Pass. That is like $2 per game when retail is $29. Okay, that is all profit, but not too many publishers will be doing that given the low economics from Game Pass. Now, this has a lot of people questioning this information because obviously this guy is just coming up with a range $5 to $10 million. I mean, that's a relatively big range for the purchase of a game to come into Xbox Game Pass. He also doesn't have a direct source as to how he's getting this information. The only thing that he says here is, for all those who wonder where these numbers come from, I have been covering Square Enix as an analyst for 15 years and talked to them regularly. Terms of an Xbox agreement are confidential, but these are my estimate based in discussions with Square and others. Let me go through the comments looking at this, and you can see a lot of people are pushing back against this information. And I would say kind of rightfully so for this. I mean, this makes it look like Square Enix is getting a bad deal. It looks like they kind of are not making enough for the game that it is. And I mean, this is a game that came out. It's a great game, but it flopped. I mean, it flopped. They cut it half price after a month it came out. So they're looking for other options to make some money back off of the production of this game and putting it into Game Pass, making another $5 to $10 million that they would have not made if they kept it in retail, is, I think, a smart move for them. And I think it would be a smart move for any of these big publishers or developers after evaluating the success of a game, looking at the numbers, looking at the intake rate, the graphs of everything after launch and how it's fallen off. I think most would make a deal like this after evaluating these numbers. I mean, these publishers, these developers, they don't just do this out of nowhere. I mean, Square Enix is a massive company, so they obviously weighed the pros and cons of going into Game Pass, and to them financially, to make back some money, to make more money than they think they could have made by not doing this, they put it into Game Pass. And this also gets you thinking about the types of deals Xbox makes. I think this is a great deal for them. I mean, $5 to $10 million for this game is probably going to attract over people to sign up for the subscription service just to play it, and they're going to make money off of those customers and potentially keep a lot of them after they sign up. That's, I think, how they kind of look at when they get content into the service. So I think this is a great deal for Microsoft. And even people may think this is a low deal for Square Enix, but it's $5 to $10 million they may have not made from this game. So we go through here the comments, and you see people really pushing back. This person says, try again, and shows this graph here saying number of subscribers of Xbox Game Pass worldwide as of January 2022 with the 25 million plus subscribers, as well as this information they showed off at GDC saying subscribers play 40% more games after joining. Games on average see 8.3 times lift in players. Day one launches see 3.5 times lift in players in large publishers. Indies 15 times. Subscribers spend 50% more. Indies see triple digit revenue growth. Yeah, and this was stuff that I talked about in a video last week from the GDC presentation. And yes, I understand. I saw a comment in that video where I was being told to critically think about this presentation. Like I said in that video, I completely get it. It's a marketing thing that they're doing at GDC, showing off all of these positive and great numbers in order to try and entice more people to join Game Pass as a developer or publisher and put their content in there. But they're not lying and making all of this stuff up. Game Pass has been successful. These numbers are showing it off, and they're not going to be inflating these numbers out of nowhere because that would just be unethical, and somebody will pick up on that. We continue on here. Nano Polymath saying weird unverifiable math conclusions also negates the increase in game spending attributed to a larger base of the service. Not hearing any complaints from any with their title in the service, quite the opposite in fact. And the response to that is it's only sustainable because Microsoft is happy to eat big losses. And then we have a great quote here that, I mean, I've made videos on this, people have talked about this, and it's kind of like a broken record now. The same kind of rebuttals you have to always show people are things that Phil Spencer has said, Microsoft has said, and people around the industry have said that Game Pass is very good for their games in terms of a developer and a publisher. People go out, they buy more games after it being into Game Pass. People discover their games way more because of the service, and they've made more money because they've been in the service. And then you have something like this here from Phil Spencer saying, I know there's a lot of people that like to write, we're burning cash now for some future pot of gold at the end. No, Game Pass is very, very sustainable right now as it sits, and it continues to grow. And there you have it. I mean, yeah, he works for Microsoft. Yeah, he's head of Xbox, but Phil Spencer has been nothing, I think, but very honest and honorable executive from what we know, and I wouldn't be twisting it any other way if he wasn't and he was making things up. Down here, this person says, what, 5 to 10 million? That is so low. I thought it would be 20 to 30 million. Some of the costs got leaked before, and it was up to 100 million for some games, maybe because it's not day one Game Pass. Was that possible? Possibly Epic numbers. Would be interesting to see that leak. If not, yeah, that would be great to see that leak, because I don't think we have too much information on their deals other than we know that they kind of structure their deals differently. This person says here, typical game sales die off after the initial 3 months. The fact you're claiming they got 10 million off of a game that failed to meet their expectations is pretty good. It's equivalent to selling over 330k copies at $30, and that's without paying platform tax. Great point there. I haven't seen if that math checks out, but sounds good. This person says, yeah, but what you're not seeing is that third-party companies are seeing 300% growth in which they are flocking to Game Pass. The response to that, it's great only as games as a service. 300% for $2 isn't better than 100% for $29. No, I mean, if there are not going to be any extra microtransactions and additional things bought on this game, that's still $5 to $10 million that they instantly, I'm assuming, just get for sending Xbox the file to upload onto Xbox Game Pass and not have to deal with a lot of the other retail stuff, such as selling physical games, because not every game is going to be sold digitally. And this is a way of just getting a quick wad of cash to make up for some of the money you think you're not going to make. And I think that's the big difference with these single player games that don't have a bunch of microtransactions, is maybe these numbers will be smaller for how much Microsoft has to pay, but for a publisher like Square Enix, they sit back and they look at the business and the financials, and that $5 to $10 million that they're getting just for putting their game onto Game Pass makes sense based off of the performance of the game and what they're projecting how the game is going to sell in retail going forward. Okay, jumping over here to some very interesting and positive information for Xbox Game Pass, and it has to do with them dominating Western gaming services based on consumer spending in Q4 of 2021. So this is a chart here, and it comes credit of Piers HR, who is a games industry analyst, and he runs games research at Ampere Analysis. And this is where this information comes from. And it's a graph, and it shows just kind of the breakup between the different gaming services out there compared to Xbox Game Pass. And you can see here that Xbox Game Pass, all services, made up about 60% of consumer service or game service consumer spend market share in Q4 of 2021, which is massive. And the other ones on the list are Apple Arcade, Google Play Pass, PlayStation Now, EA Play, Ubisoft Plus, and others. So it's huge, Game Pass, in terms of how it dominates consumer spending when it comes to gaming services. And if you think about Q4 2021, it was a massive quarter for Xbox. You think about Halo coming out, and you think about Forza Horizon 5. So those games are obviously going to increase the amount of money that people are spending on the service. And I think you can look at this as what to kind of expect going forward in the future once the first party games start landing day and date on to Xbox Game Pass, in the sense that you think about all of the first party games coming out from Xbox Game Studios, the Bethesda games, the Activision Blizzard games, and just the previously first party Xbox Game Studios and IPs that are there. You have this fall, which I think could potentially be even bigger with a game like Starfield coming out, and then Redfall, which is supposed to make its way out onto the service. And once Xbox starts hitting their goal of putting out games every 2, 3, 4 months from their first party studios landing day and date into the service, the consumer spending, I think, is going to explode even more. And the proof is in the pudding when we look here at Q4 2021 with the already, I guess, dominant lead on Western gaming services, I think that lead is going to just get even bigger once these games start coming out. So that's it for me, guys. What are your thoughts on the Xbox Game Pass deal for Guardians of the Galaxy? And do you think there are more deals along similar terms as that, or do you just think that they're completely different across the board depending on the game and depending on the situation? And what do you think about this lead, this huge gap between the consumer spending on Game Pass and other services out there? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you like what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.